All right, everybody. As you may or may not know, one of the things we love to do on this channel is talk about things you're not going to find in mainstream media. You're just not going to find it. And one of those things is talking about players that could have a potential big impact. And there's certain things you start to figure out as you follow a team through the years over and over and over again. And you find out things. Sorry, we're planning for a 4th of July party here coming up in a couple of days. If you can hear my wife vacuuming, that's not me. But I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to keep talking. So anyways, there's already a player that the Lions have added that's proving out to be kind of a revelation. And it totally makes sense. I think of players that have kind of played in his role before. I think about Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Had a couple of really successful years under Dan Campbell. Had a successful year under Dan Campbell, and Aaron Glenn signed with the Texans, did not play well there, came back here, or I think it was the Texans, maybe it was the Titans. But anyways, this is one of those things that when you look at it, you're like, okay, that makes sense. He plays well in this system. There's been other players who have played well in this system that have ended up getting other contracts at the linebacker position, and they didn't really do much anywhere else. Now we have a player that's coming back here, and it's Grant Stewart. If you're not familiar with Grant Stewart, he was with the Indianapolis Colts the first 2 years of his career. He was drafted in 2021. All right, he didn't play in 2022 because of injury. In 2021, I do believe he may that may not be true. I should probably make sure I actually have those things correct before I give you that stuff. He 100% played in 2022. He just didn't play any actual defensive snaps. It was just special team snaps. So with that, he was drafted in 2021. He's played the last 3 years for the Colts. He was a 7th-round pick out of Houston. He played for the Houston Cougars. He was selection 261. Now, this is a guy who has a little more athleticism than you think he would, but he's also a guy who has 19 tackles in a game. I'm not here to talk about that. What I'm here to talk about is actual numbers, what they look like, and what I think his role could be here in Detroit, and just kind of look at what that looks like. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Alex Anzalone, kind of what does that look like? Is there going to be a contract holdout? Isn't there going to be a contract holdout? And I'm going to give you some stats that might actually surprise you about Alex Anzalone as well. But first, I'm going to talk to you about what some people are saying. All right, Stewart's impressive offseason began when Jeff Risdon. Now, Jeff Risdon is a beat writer for the Lions. He does a good job. He's on Lions Wire. He reported that his notes were littered with Stewart making plays in OTAs. All right, this is what happened. He continued talking about Dave Phipp when Dave Phipp hurled superlatives at him as well. And here's what Dave Phipp had to say. And I'm going to go ahead and get this for you. All right, so you can see the whole thing. Says, we're fired up about Grant, Phipp said. When we played against him, all the guys in the room were really like, this guy plays with his hair on fire. He's got a lot of energy. He's a tough out every single play. When he's in coverage, punt, or kickoff, he's making a tackle or showing up around the ball. He's going to demand a lot of resources from the opponent. I would say that's the biggest thing. Okay, he's a guy you cannot ignore. All right, it could not ignore. All right, Colton Pouncey, also of The Athletic, noted that Stewart could be a solid under-the-radar addition. He said Stewart, a free agent addition from the Colts, figures to be a core special teams player with defensive upside. Yeah, it's only his 4th year in the NFL. He stepped in as a starter for the Colts last season, recorded 19 tackles in a game, but think of him as a Jalen Reeves-Maybin replacement. This was a Dave Phipp signing. I think that it's a Dave Phipp signing to an extent. I also think when Frank Ragnow retired, I know I'm going on the other side of the ball here for a second, just stick with me. When Ragnow retired, we can look back at the NFL draft and realize we absolutely anticipated that coming. Maybe there's an anticipation of what's going on with Alex Anzalone. Jack Campbell is locked in as the starting middle linebacker. Derek Barnes is locked into a starting linebacker role. But that contract situation with Alex Anzalone leaves things to be determined. Not just that, all right, Malcolm Rodriguez is still recovering from a torn ACL. And it's looking like he's not going to be coming back till October, maybe even November. if all things continue to go as planned. Now, they signed Zach Cunningham, but I don't know how I feel about that, right? That's a little bit older, all right? So I want to show you something here that might surprise you. This is our linebacker room. Okay, this is our linebacker room. And Zach Cunningham, you have to throw those stats out because it was only 15 snaps. All right? It was only 15 snaps. But here's what's interesting. Grant Stewart right here with a total defensive grade of 69.4, with a run defensive grade of 70, and a coverage grade of 65. If you're asking him to take in kind of what Alex Anzalone did, you're not asking him to rush the passer, so don't worry about that. Here's what's interesting. Everybody fell in love with Alex Anzalone last year, and rightfully so, right? The things he did when he broke his forearm, the way he came back, dude was a dog, and I was absolutely impressed with him. But he's 30 years old. He's 30 years old. He's the same age as Zach Cunningham, and when we got him, we're like, oh, it's an old linebacker. He's in a contract dispute. Alex Anzalone graded out as our 4th best linebacker last year. Did you know that? Now, PFF doesn't always tell the truth. Derek Barnes graded out at a 71.8. Malcolm Rodriguez at a 74.4. Jack Campbell at a 78.8. And Alex Anzalone at a 66.9. Now, with Derek Barnes, you can get away with small sample size, but it was enough for us to pay him. And it was also smaller than Grant Stewart's at a 69.4. Malcolm Rodriguez, dude, played 318 snaps. All right, 318 snaps and played them very, very well at a 74.4. I think that's something that absolutely has to be taken into consideration here. So here's what I'm telling you. Grant Stewart, when placed next to Campbell and Barnes, who are 2 top-level starting linebackers in the NFL. These guys are. All right, Anzalone is too. Don't get me wrong. But Stewart actually could have a big impact on this defense early on this year. They could. Or he could. He absolutely could. I also want to take a second. I'll probably do this in a couple of other videos too, just to give some props. I just want to give some props on the Chaz Lanier signing by the Detroit Pistons. I think this is fantastic. This is a guy who, if you look at some of his stats, he's almost 40% three-point shooter in the college game. He was a small school player that transferred in and went to Tennessee, which was a phenomenal team this year. All he did was average 18 points per game, right? For them, 76% from the line, 39.5% from three, and 43% from the field in general. This is a guy who can be a plug-and-play, all right, three-point shooter, which is great considering the news that happened to Beasley. Like, that just stinks, and he's not going to be on our team most likely. I don't know what team he's going to be playing for. I don't know if he's going to be playing for a team. It's a bummer, but we went out. We got Karis LeVert, which was kind of underwhelming for me, but then the Duncan Robinson signing was phenomenal. Like, trade Simone Fontecchio. I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss this, but I am going to love me some Duncan Robinson. I'm a Michigan guy, so Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, both from Michigan, bringing them back into the state, letting them play for the Pistons, bring a little more, just a little more veteran presence. As you're probably going to lose Hardaway, you're going to lose Beasley. So to bring those guys in, I think is smart. So, all right, hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Grant Stewart, keep your eye on him. See ya.